So these are going to be why you need CRO in your life, why it's going to be awesome for you all. We're going to give you some really quick, actionable wins with the idea that you can literally write these down, implement it in your site, and you're going to get either extra sales or extra leads instantly, pretty quickly. So those are going to be useful for you. I'm also going to briefly explain the softwares that myself and my team use to be able to do this. So if you do fancy giving it a go yourself, then hopefully with the quick wins combined with the software, you should actually be able to do some of this. So let's get into it. So first off, cheeky photo of me. Here we go on the swing. You've already kind of covered what I was going to say in these awards, but just a little bit, so hopefully you know what I was talking about, is HTML awards, CSS awards. We're on the recommended agency register, which is voted for by clients, and then the Intuit Award, the NACU Award, the Lloyd's TSB, and the Amazon Award are all for entrepreneurship. So hopefully I know a little about what I'm talking about. So CRO has lots of really technical terms for it, and I thought the best thing to do is just kind of approach it from what I believe CRO is, or conversion rate optimization is. So CRO is the technique of convincing people on your website to give you money, essentially, through experimentation. So that can be lots of different things. I'm going to give you a couple of different examples now, but I think quite a lot of what we all do in our own businesses, we worry so much about trying to get more and more traffic to our website that we forget that actually the thing that we're funneling everyone to, if that's rubbish or if that's not converting anyone, it doesn't really matter how much traffic you send to it, it's not going to convert. So this is taking a step back and really being able to try and focus on the fact that we want people to buy from you. We want to make it as easy as possible for them. Some of these are going to seem quite simple, and you'll say, well, I could have thought of that, but the likelihood is if you've not done it, then at least you can try it out today. And we're going to get into a few examples now. So we're going to start off kind of slow, and we're going to build up from there. So we're going to go with this. I'll switch over here. We've got an example on the left here. So this one's called the control, which just means the original version of it. So you can see, not that you can read that, but it says add to cart. It's a blue button. And then the treatment version of it was changed to a slightly bigger, really bold green button with rounded corners. And you can't quite read that, but I can read it on this screen down here. Is a 35% increase in conversions. So people were more likely to purchase. And the idea of this is that we're making it obvious what we want that user to do. We're making it stand out. We're giving it some contrast. And because of that, they're more likely to do it. We take the one on the right here, very similar setup, that you'll see that there's this toolkit that they were giving away free access to. There's a button here that you can hardly even see that says join now. It's kind of a grey button. It looks nice, but the idea is the way we want to kind of treat it is in a nicest way possible, that the user that's coming onto your website is a bit of an idiot and they don't really know where they're meant to be going. So the idea is if we make it really obvious with a big orange bold button, then they're far more likely to click it. And you can see 28.7% conversion rate. So the idea of these things just here hopefully gives you an indication that all of a sudden the number of different variants that you can have on your website that you can make all these little changes to can start to compound up and really affect the likelihood of more and more and more and more people buying through you. And the idea being that once you've got that really high conversion rate, that's when you turn the tap back on, that's when you send all the traffic through, and obviously it transforms your business. Next example that works really, really well is kind of positive language kind of usage on your actual buttons itself. So I don't know if anyone's ever heard of Square, but it's essentially a bit of hardware and a bit of software that you plug into the top of your phone that you can see here, and it allows you when you're, I don't know, at exhibitions, conferences, to be able to take card payment really easily, so you can just swipe the card along the top. And what you'll see here, it says start accepting credit cards today. And instead of this blue button saying the standard thing that you normally see on websites, which is buy now or click here to start your journey or anything kind of boring and basic like that, it uses the context of what we want the user to do. And it says get free card reader here. So you're far more likely to click that because you know it's free, you know you're not going to have to pay anything, you know what you're getting yourself in for. And trying to give that kind of context at that exact point is really, really important, and that's what will increase conversions. Another example down here, man packs. So basically you get like a box of underwear and like razors and manly essential things sent to you monthly. And they've got big green button, contrast really, really stands out. And the language on that is build your man pack. So instead of buy now or find out more or more information, which are all a bit boring, you're actually going to build something. And even the use of the language of build your man pack or build my man pack makes it more personal to them. The idea with these kind of positive language buttons and what works really, really well with them is the idea that these people are essentially reading that button in their head. So if it says build my man pack, they're going to read that in their own internal monologue, and that will increase the likelihood that they're going to do it. So again, we've kind of got a couple of quick wins straight away here. So these are meant to be that first off, if you've got buttons that aren't particularly obvious, try and add some form of contrast to make them stand out. And then also have a think about what you're labeling your buttons and try and think about at what point what they're going to say on them. Last one, just example on this particular bit, is a button down here. And this is for a bit of software called heat mapping, which is what we use a lot of in conversion rate work. And heat mapping basically allows you to monitor where people are clicking on your website. And as it would suggest, the more clicks in a certain area of your website, the hotter that area gets. So a really good way of analyzing how people are moving around your site and what they're clicking on. And you'll see here, instead of a buy now, it says show me my heat map. So again, it's that referencing of that idea that works really, really well. The other thing that they do, and something that we recommend everyone should be doing, is you want to put something like a credibility builder next to the button that you want the user to perform. And the reason for that is you've only really got kind of a couple of seconds, really, once they've read that credibility builder, that they'll then go, actually, yeah, I'm going to click this button, I'm going to do it. So you'll see here that they've got this double guarantee. They'll read that, they'll go, that sounds like a good one, and surprise, surprise, they put that right next to the button that we want them to press. So there's no point you putting all these credibility builders on if it's no way near the action that we want the user to perform on that page. So you need to make sure that that's really, really thought through. So, I mean, we've all kind of covered this already today. We all know how to sell. But essentially, this is what I would want on a website to make sure it's going to convert. So these are, is it obvious the service that you offer? Can people see previous work that you've done? And that's probably case studies and examples and stuff like that you've done. Can you also prove how epic you are? So my thought process with this one is, if you've got accreditations that you guys have done, if you've got awards, those should be on there. If there's any particular softwares that you use, maybe those should be referenced. Anything like that are kind of additions that we can add on to the site that are going to build that credibility, and that's what it's all about. The next one is, can you see your staff? Now, I think everyone's already kind of touched on this already, that people don't buy just a random business, they don't buy the service, they buy the people who are going to do that service. So it just makes sense to have some form of reference to your team on there, and even if it isn't just a cheesy standard headshot with the bio, even if it's just group shots or people working away in situ, gives an indication of who's behind the business. And I think that's really, really important, and we find with every single type of business that we work with, if we add that in, it makes a huge difference. And the last one is, are you giving them a reason to contact? So if it just says, contact us now or buy this now, the likelihood of them doing that is going to be much lower than if we can give them a legitimate reason to get in touch now, whether that be a particular offer for a certain amount of time, or if they get this, they get access to something else. There's all these ways that we should really be taking advantage of it, and they're going to increase your conversion rate. Oh, let's get into an example. So this is Great Beanbags. You, sir, guess what they sell? Yes, good work. So first version I'm going to show you, and apologies if anyone knows them. We didn't design this first version, so don't judge me for the way this looks. So this is their original site. There's a lot of things wrong with this, and what I'm going to do is the idea being that I'm going to run through what's wrong with it, and I'm going to show you the versions afterwards that we've kind of fixed. I'm going to run through it with the idea that as I'm running through, hopefully you'll be able to take out some more quick wins for you. So the first thing, or first kind of problems that you have with this particular site is there's loads of menus. So from a customer, like a user point of view, I don't know where to go. Like, do I use this menu on the left? Do I click these? Do I click down here? There's too much going on. Now, straight away, my eyes are drawn. Hopefully, you'll all agree that your eyes are drawn to this green thing at the top here, which is the Trustpilot, which is great, but it didn't lead anywhere. So all it said was 5 stars, and we didn't actually know if it was of any use. So our eyes are drawn to this, which do we want them drawn to that straight away? That's up for debate. The imagery that's on there is just all white background, so it doesn't look particularly exciting. You don't see it in situ. And actually, putting something in situ makes it far easier for someone to imagine using it. When you're forcing a user to use imagination instead, it's a lot harder for them to get an idea of how that could potentially look in their house, for example. So we're always trying to ensure they have them in situ. So yeah, it's not the easiest thing to look around, and I'd probably also say hopefully you'd probably agree, it looks quite cheap. So their actual beanbags themselves weren't cheap. They were like over £200 per beanbag. So because of that, when you go on that site, you would presume they're cheaper. So a couple of things that we would always do when we first start on any kind of conversion work is we basically ask them the question. So just before they go to leave, you can use the software that I'm going to explain to you in a little bit, where you can ask them a question, and what it will do is it uses this exit technology, as they call it. But as you go to leave the browser and press the back button, it will pop up a little question, and we always ask that same question, which is, why didn't you buy from us today? It's as simple as that. It will work for any industry. It will give you really, really good feedback, and that's definitely one that I would recommend. So here's a really small snapshot of type of things that we got back. So we got price, or too expensive. We got that they were worried about how they were made. They were worried that they were just a reseller for China, so that's why they were kind of shipping them over and then reselling them on. There was some confusion over the cubic feet and size for top-up. So top-up was their term for kind of the beads inside a bag. There was also some confusion over the overall sizing of the bags. And then there's less important ones at the bottom. So waiting for Black Friday, and then someone making a joke of my bank balance. So the top one's a really important one for me. And I would always say, if the argument is, or if someone says, we're too expensive, it's because you've not shown the value that you guys can give. So we're not getting across the message of why you guys are that price. And there's a couple of things that we saw before. So, the overall original site looked cheap. It didn't necessarily represent what they were. It didn't explain how they were made. It didn't explain that everything was handmade. And that's what we really wanted to get across. So here's a couple of the implemented solutions that we added into their site. And these are just kind of screenshotty bits. But we started to talk about how all the fabrics were sourced, the fact that everything was kind of handmade, everything's manufactured in the UK. We also had a video done which actually showed from like order going through, it showed that everything was made. It showed they've got this awesome room that's like, I don't know, like the size of this. It's massive. And it's just full of those little tiny beads, and you can go inside it, but you have to wear a mask, because otherwise you might suffocate. But it showed all those sort of things. We also added in their Trustpilot. So what they had before is they just had that little kind of green thing that had the 5 stars, but no one could actually read them. Whereas now every single product page has its own reviews. So all of a sudden, if you can see, right, that beanbag's £200, but 2,000 people have bought it, and they've all rated it 5 stars, you're far more likely to purchase it. This one on the right was kind of a learning curve that we had. We originally tried adding just sizings just to give an explanation. Didn't really improve conversions. We still got a lot of people unsure of how it worked. So we first added the top row, and that was basically a guy sat on a beanbag, and it showed the different sizes that he fitted under, and that did help. But what we found is quite a lot of the time, parents were buying them for their children, and they wanted to get an indication of how big that was going to be for their child. So we then added this second row on, where it was just basically a girl sat on it instead. And you can see already just the difference in how big they are compared to the person sitting on it. So you can see all of these little things really start to add up here. Now, I know Dawn originally touched on the fact that in her talk that I think industry standard to her, she said 2%. We have it down as 2.1, so obviously very marginal. But this site currently converts at 4.1%, and we've got a couple of clients we've got one client converting over in double figures, 11, 12%. We've got a couple of clients converting over 20% as well. And these are obviously over kind of months and years of trying all these different compounds, and they kind of build up. So all of these things are possible. So one example, or not that you can read it, so this hasn't worked that well, but this here is something that we would run called a multivariant test. And what this will do is this was on Great Beanbags, and what we tested here was all the buttons on the home page. So the original buttons on the home page to get to an individual product said something like more information. That was kind of it. Whereas now it says these are all kind of more personalized. So it goes into learn more about this product. Is this beanbag for you? We started to test all these different language options here that run all the way down. And what you can see, the ones in green were the ones that all ended up positive. So what's really great from my point of view, which is always quite nice, is I can run like 25 tests, and like 19 of them can be absolutely awful, but the client doesn't really care. And they're like, oh, Ross, you're a genius because 2 of your experiments have worked. And that's basically what you'll be doing. And I'm going to show you the software afterwards that allows you to be able to test that yourself as well. Oh. So obviously that's half of it. That's the other half. So imagine if this is one long page. But this is how the new website looks. It's not live at the moment. It's a massive build, but it will be live very, very soon. I'm just going to very briefly run you through this so you've got an understanding of the extra bits that you should be taking from this as well. Already touched on this at the top, but what we discovered is people want to see things in situ, so they want to see how it's going to look when it's finished, because it's easier for them to imagine it in their own house. So we're now starting with that at the top. We also found, looking at the analytics, that most people didn't really use their menu systems, which is not surprising because there were so many of them, and instead most people use the search bar. So taking that into account, we've made the search bar stand out in the right corner with a big blue button, so their eyes are drawn to that in the first place. So we're trying to think how that customer journey can be easier for those people. We then got kind of a visual category instead, so if they've not used the search bar, instead of having to use a fiddly menu, they can click on one of the options, so the chair, the sofa, the bed, the dog bed, you can see how those break down. We've then hit them with an offer, which is that orange bar, and what's quite nice about that is it just helps to break the design up a little bit. As we go down, and this is a term that we use internally in the office called logo porn, so apologies for that. But this is one of the really, really good ones that I'd recommend everyone do, which is you will all be either working with companies who are well established, or you'll be using softwares that are well established. You might have accreditations or awards that you can put those on your site, and you can essentially steal credibility from these companies. So the fact that Great Beanbags has worked with Fox, it's worked with Lego, it's worked with the Premier League, it's worked with Innocent Smoothies, already as soon as you, like I've mentioned those now, you'll probably think, oh, this company must be pretty good. And that's essentially what I would say for all of you, that make sure, especially if you're only a small business, if you have worked with some larger ones, add those in because they make a huge difference to your credibility. We've then got their featured products on there. These are all their best sellers. So again, we're just trying to think of the best way to get a user onto those as quick as possible. This bit where it says winter is coming is just basically an offer for a seasonal offer where they can update that really easily, and it's good for SEO. This next bit with the actual shot of a beanbag is really important because it breaks down everything that goes into that beanbag, and we're breaking down that process. And if you remember, one of the things that people said is they didn't know if they were UK made, they didn't know if they were a reseller. So the fact that we're willing to break down how these are made is really important. So we talk about the zips, we talk about how they're sewn together, we talk about how the beanbags are put inside it, we talk about how they're delivered. So all of a sudden we're adding all these layers of credibility and showcasing everything behind the scenes, and therefore it increases credibility. The last one, which we should all be doing, we've had a lot of people talk about today, but kind of social media, for these guys, it's social proofing. So the fact it's a way of them demonstrating how their beanbags can be used, and the fact that other people are using them will mean if you do land on this site, you're probably more likely to think, okay, lots of people are buying this, I'll buy mine from here. And hopefully you'll agree, landing on this site, it also has that overall kind of premium feeling of, okay, I understand why I'm paying a little bit more for the beanbag now. So we're going to quickly break down into how some of the big boys do it. And one of the things that I would always say that we should touch on is with your website design, you want to basically answer any potential objections that you can have. I'm going to attempt a little bit of, I won't ask you again if I ask you. But when you're buying a bed, what are the things that you would kind of test when buying a bed? Nice. Any others? Any raises on that? That was firmness and softness. Okay, can you get it upstairs? Is that how heavy it is? Is it easy to move? Maneuverability? Yep. Any others? Bounciness. Brilliant. Thanks, Tim. So yeah, there's a couple of other things that you might think about. So if anyone's ever used a memory foam mattress, you'll know they can be quite hot as well. You'll know that the standard thing that you do when you go into a bed shop is you'll look at it and you'll do this. And you'll go, it's all right. And if you quite like it, you might give it the old, yep, that's all right. And then you might lie down on it. So you can imagine, actually, if you've got to do all those things, if you're just selling a mattress on a website, you can't do any of those. So all of a sudden, the design and the layout has to answer those objections in a really easy to understand way. So a big block of text isn't going to cut it. No one's going to read that. So we need to think differently. So what Casper do, and I'd recommend checking out their website because I absolutely love it. Any clients in the room, apologies, because I probably used Casper as part of my sales pitch to you when I met you. But it works really, really well. So here you go, how easy it is to move. It's got a balloon, it's lifting it up. There you go, visual kind of representation of it's just easy to use. And then we've got credibility over here on the right. So 5,000 people have bought it from Amazon, I think. 25,000 people have bought it overall through Google certified even shops. And there's a little bit of text, which essentially, even though I've visited that site hundreds of times, I've never read. But that visually tells me that all the information I need to know. I can't see from here. Can you see fans on that? Can we see some fans? No, we can't. There's fans there, guys. Just trust me. There's some electric fans. No, we can't see them. You'll see them on the deck when you get them sent. But here's this woman sat rather peacefully with some fans around her. And the idea of that represents to you very visually, very easily, the fact that this mattress is going to be cool to sleep on. It's not going to be hot. So anyone, like I referenced, that anyone who slept on a memory foam mattress would know. So again, really nice and visual. And then the last thing is they have this in a different color to the rest. So they've made it purposely stand out. And then they've broken down what their process is. So you order it online, it's free shipping, and then probably most importantly, you get it for 100 nights. And if you don't like it, they'll pay to come pick it up from you, and you get all your money back. So the idea is they've taken all the risk away. And because it's in this big, bold black section compared to the rest of the side that's white, it immediately draws the user's eye, and they're far more likely to want to move ahead with it. You'll also see that the button on here says explore the trial. So it's not buy now like we've referenced. It's explore it, see if it's right for you. The fact that they've referenced trial rather than their purchasing will also increase the likelihood of someone paying. So again, think about how you can potentially use that language in your own sites. Next one is Infusionsoft, big CRM system. Apologies, there's a CRM company over there now. Sorry about that. But the way they kind of reference it is, obviously, in theory, if you land on their site, you'll know what a CRM system is. But they're all about making the language all about how they can make it easier for you. So you'll read that big title. You'll see that the button here, again, green ties in with the logo color, but purposely stands out. It says Discover Infusionsoft. So again, we're referencing the fact that it's no purchasing right now. We're not making you do the trial there and then. We're just making you do the decision that we want them to do, which is just for now, it's just, we've only landed on the homepage. We don't want to try and ask them for that purchase right now. We just want them to have a look around the site. So we're making that as easy as possible for them. The other thing that Infusionsoft does really, really well is social proofing, and that builds credibility. And you'll see here they've got things like 125,000 users on board, 29 billion emails. Now, the reason I love 29 billion emails is that's just because obviously so many people are sending emails every day. Now, we've all got much smaller businesses than this, but there'll be a big number in our business that we can reference. So, for example, is there any accountants in the room? It might be a reference to how much tax you've saved them, because that could be a really big number. So even if you've only got 5 clients, the amount of tax that you've saved them will be a much bigger number. There'll be definite ways that you can find big numbers in your business to make it look more impressive. So have a think about how you can add those in as well. The last one here on Infusionsoft is, again, kind of the logo porn that they reference, and they go a step further, that they've then got a testimonial for each individual kind of one. Now, this isn't perfect. Now, I would say for me, there is a perfect way to lay a testimonial out, and that is obviously a positive testimonial. We want a picture of the person. We want the name of the person. We want the job title of the person, and then we want the name of the company. Now, if I talk you through those, testimonial, obviously, they're going to read it's going to be positive. That's great. You may have met someone at a networking event or seen them around but not know their name. So that's why an image is really good, because you might recognize them. So the same can be said of a name. So if they've got the name on there but you don't recognize their face but you've heard of them, that can work in the same way. So that's why we want the name on there. The third one is, if it's got the job title on, you know who they're selling to. So for example, Strafe Creative, we want marketing directors to come to us. So all our testimonials and all our stuff are from marketing directors, so they know that we're trying to make their job easier. So try and reference that. And then the last one, worst case, is just have the name of the company or the logo, whichever one you can get hold of. And then that can work really well, because worst case, they'll have heard of the name of the company. So those are what I would say are the perfect testimonial. Not all clients will find it hard to track down the imagery, but really push them for it. Cool. So as promised, I said I would mention some of the softwares that we use. There's essentially 4 that I would say all work really, really well. Hotjar is a UK-based conversion rate optimization software. What's really good about this one is, although you can code in it, you'll be able to do a lot of these tests yourself without any coding knowledge. So for example, going back to the original one that I showed you, which was kind of changing the color of the button, you'll be able to use their kind of viewer to go on your own website once you've installed it, and just click on the button, and they'll have a color picker, and then you can just change the color of the button. There'll also be a button that's pressed like that says scale, and then you'll just be able to make the button slightly bigger. And then you'll be able to save that, and then that might be V1 or V2. And you can see how very quickly you could do 10 different versions of your website with just a different color of those buttons. So that works really, really well. The next one is VWO, or Visual Website Optimizer. This is my particular kind of weapon of choice. You can code really heavily in this as well, so we can do some really complicated testings to maybe test different layouts. You can use it in the same way as Hotjar. American company, still works really, really well. If you want to dip your toe in, just trying it out, SumoMe works really, really well because it's free. They do have a paid-for version, but again, you can do basic things that you might want to do in that just to start with. And then Optimizely is probably one of the simplest ones to use overall. It's a little bit more limited if you get into some of the more complex tests to start with. But if you just want to kind of try it out and don't mind spending a little bit of money on it, then Optimizely's probably got the easiest user interface for you to work with. So the grand reveal, I was meant to at the start of this actually, when I was going to say the grand reveal, you were meant to all go ta-da, but I forgot to tell you that. So, ta-da! That'll do. Never mind. So, what have I done in this presentation? Dun, dun, dun. So, I ran through my proof, I ran through my awards, I explained what those were. You know a little bit about who I am because I've been up here, Paul introduced me. I had a little bit at the start just to explain who I was and what I did. I explained what the service was, so you could put it into simple terms. I put it hopefully into an easier way for you guys to understand. I've shown you some of the past work, which gives you the idea of the kind of the quality that we're doing. So hopefully these are all the things that should be on your own website that I've put in the presentation today. For the eagle-eyed people of you, this guy's nodding his head. I've not given you a reason to contact yet. So, 3 potential options. That says warning, selling. My new book is now available to pre-order. It goes live on the 2nd of November. You can pre-order it now. If you go to paperplaneplan.com, that's quite hard to say in public, it will just redirect you straight to Amazon. You can pre-order it from there. Another one that I would recommend, potentially not all of you because it would be very time-consuming, but if you go to our website, strafecreative.co.uk/web-grader, what you can do is there's a form on there where you can submit your own website, and either myself or one of the team will basically do an actual very quick kind of 3-4 minute review of your own website and give you some really quick hints and tips of what you guys can do to improve it. So the idea is we're going to try help as many people as possible to improve their conversion rates. And then the last one is an event that we're hosting with a couple of people in the room. Vicky's going to be there, Paul, who was on before, and that's going to be a really hands-on event. We're going to be away for a few days in a secret location, and we're going to be spending the time working on your business to get you really, really kind of involved and ready for 2018. If you want to have a chat with me, just come have a chat on that. And I want to finish with, again, Steve Jobs. Vicky, you've already done this as well. I'm convinced that about half of what separates successful entrepreneurs from non-successful ones is pure perseverance. And I think that's that can't be even more true than it is for conversion rate work, because it's a case of just testing and trying things out. The last one that I would just finish with is very much a warning for conversion rate work. If you're going to give it a try, don't try run multiple things at the same time. So, for example, if you're going to run the color of a button, just run that. Don't try and run the color of a button and the text on a button and change some of the imagery and change some of the titles, because the problem will be is you'll have absolutely no idea which ones have worked and which ones haven't and why. So try and be kind of methodical with it, put it in an order that you're happy with, and work your way through it until you get the kind of results. Thank you very much for listening, guys.